this is going to be a bit of a digression, but what it's reminding me of is kind of a thing Cass and I have talked about before, and we've talked about journalism and media brands, is that often you'll see the older and more established brands, the ones that have already gotten to trust, start trying to find ways to cash in on that and exploit their brand, exploit their trust. And I think Forbes is like the clearest example of this, right?
They're terrible. They're contributed
Exactly.
articles section and people saying I've been in Forbes. I'm like, anyone could be in
Yeah,
Forbes. It's so
exactly.
funny.
And so they like sacrifice their entire brand in order to like cash in on that. And that's often contrasted against earlier stage ones, newer ones that are still building up that kind of trust and that legitimacy, which need to focus on more of the things you're talking about, making sure that like things work the way they're supposed to, that the flywheel keeps going as you build. And like what's been interesting for me to tie it back in here is that many of the brands that you've seen do these poorly thought through NFT projects to me often feel like more of like those established brands which are disconnected from feedback, disconnected from their users, and are not necessarily getting the feedback to say, this isn't what we want, this isn't the problem we're experiencing. And so because of that, end up launching these kind of things.
Yeah, totally. And taking off my like branding hat and everything, putting on my SEO hat, their Forbes 30 under 30 list is the most brilliant thing they've ever done from a search marketing perspective. So first of all, those first 30 people, guess what happens when they publish that? All 30 of those people blog, link back, put on their corporate website that I was in this list. They linked to Forbes. Forbes is like, wait, this is smart. Let's do like 600 under 30 and do it for every sector. And so basically, they've created the most brilliant organic link building campaign in the world. And it always works. And it's like, I am actually, I think it's silly. We all think it's silly. They're like clearly pandering for links and attention, but it's brilliant because the mid-twits that play the status games that all of us speaking right now are never going to do that. It's not what we do. There's like two types of humans. You either play status games or don't. And so it cracks me up. The other thing about the Forbes contributed pieces thing. So I used to care about this because I'm a marketer and I don't like when people like oversell or over aggrandize with bullshit. But it dawned on me one day, it's idiots fooling idiots. If you're not smart enough to know that Forbes allows just anyone to run a byline, or Business Insider, I don't know if they still do that, then those people were probably not going to be like fun to work with or do business with. I'm not saying it's right to scam them that way. I'm just saying like they're in their own little circle, and like you're sort of self-selecting out of getting to work with certain people or on certain projects at a different level. And I think that I think we evolve to be really attuned to reputation. Reputation might be the most important thing we have. That's why I wrote a post this week on the fact that the idiot growth hackers who are doing, these long threads on 40 mental models they copied from Wikipedia. I'm like, dude, you don't look good. You look like a web spammer. Like, no one smart is going to follow you. You're probably just going to get blocked. You're going to attract a whole bunch of other people who are also in this pyramid scheme of online engagement to try to sell ebooks or whatever their outcome is. It's just like, the more I spend worrying about this, like I'm more worried about the things you guys usually talk about with the systemic risk in crypto and stablecoins. Like, I think those are meatier issues, whereas my marketing issues are like, they're further down on like the pole of importance. Really, I'm a marketer. It's not as existential. We're telling people to buy shit. We're not holding people's net worth, right? So it is funny though, because it's funny who it fools. It just cracks me up.
You're touching on a topic that we've discussed before, but I think it's important because, again, this is like a battle within that I'm like, I want to believe that all of these people will have repercussions for doing incredibly stupid things. But then I remember that like we live in this attention economy. And
it's not repercussions for that sort of fakery. I think it is dings on your reputation and optics personally in such a way that actually you never even understand the opportunities that you lost. Like you don't even know what you've missed because no one's ever going to tell you unless someone who's your friend says, hey, like was looking out for you and says, hey, the optics of this aren't great. So again, the status game thing, like when you engage in that, like we all know people that this is obvious to me as a marketer, where they have like 300,000 followers on like Twitter, Instagram, and no engagement. So it's clear they have bots. It's clear they have bot followers. There's tools you could see that. But the optics for me of seeing that person with 300K followers and no engagement are worse than that person had 500 followers, no engagement. I would think way more of them. So they're accomplishing the opposite. And I understand, there maybe are certain people that will be fooled by that. But again, I think it's like you're so relegating all these people to a sort of level of competence and ultimately a level of responsibility, right? Like Google DeepMind isn't going to hire these people to work on AI. They're not, right?
Sure.
Lockheed Martin probably is going to know better than to bring in someone. So it's like, yeah.
I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is, from what I've seen in this industry, is that there's people who are doing, and I'm talking outside the scope of fake bots or whatever, fake engagement. I'm talking people who are straight up giving financial advice and then dumping on their followers, stuff like that, or like hypothetically, like saying they're raising money for their grandma, but then using that money to like buy NFTs or something like that, hypothetically. But like, let's just say that these things happen. You would expect these people to vanish after they do these horrible things. And instead, what I'm seeing is that they stick around and they're able to find some audience that's like devoted to them, which is crazy to me. Like it's still like, it's otherworldly that they're still able to make a living. Whether or not it may not be like the hundreds of millions of dollars they could be making if they were actually good, but they're still making a living doing that, and I guess that's my issue.
Yep. We've scaled the Jordan Belfort experience,
right?
And one other comment. I was talking about this with another friend of mine who is like one of my smartest friends. He programmed the AlphaGo, like Google AI stuff. He's like way smarter than I will ever be. And we were having a discussion about crypto because he's like curious about it. And I was curious his thoughts. And he made the point that the optimistic take of a lot of this is you have taken the cohort of people who would have been bad actors in the productive parts of the world and the economy, and you've put them in this sort of isolated, sectioned off, carnival circus. And so because they're there, they have been quarantined. There's obviously scammers everywhere, but we sort of built this honeypot for grifters. And so his take was actually don't regulate it. Let the people who want to grift go to the honeypot and keep them out of. And he doesn't understand finance or all the nuance that you do. He's not like purely philosophical. Like he has no like finance or regulatory background. But he was like that's like my sort of thinking and systems take that would it make regular financial markets like better? Would it? And I don't know that that's the answer too, because there's still plenty of bullshit and grifting and regular TradFi.